I don't know how to start this story. Maybe with a confession. I still love her, even after everything, even after I left. My name is Evan, and I dedicated 5 years of my life to a woman for whom, as I thought back then, I was ready to die. We met in 2014 at an ordinary party with friends. Nothing foreshadowed that she would turn my life upside down. Her name was Lily. She laughed like someone who isn't afraid to be heard. She had hair the color of warm honey and eyes, gray-green, the kind you could drown in if you let your guard down for even a second. I remember how she turned to me when someone spilled wine on the couch and said, "You're not one of those who runs from chaos, are you?" I smirked. "I'm more the type who cleans it up afterward." That's how our conversation started, with a silly phrase, but it didn't end. We talked all evening while others were already leaving. She told me about her job as an interior designer, about her childhood in a family where everyone yelled but loved each other. And I told her about how after college I couldn't find myself and was scraping by on freelance work. "The main thing is not to stop," she said. "Life always gives a second chance." That was a phrase that seemed just beautiful back then. Later, it became almost a prophecy. A month later, we were already living together. Everything happened quickly, as if we were pulled into a vortex, and we both feared falling out. Lily was the kind of person who filled empty spaces. If I was sitting at my laptop frowning, she'd come over, place a cup of coffee next to me, and just stroke my shoulder. If things weren't going well for me, she'd joke. And there was something homey about it, something I hadn't known before. She knew how to turn ordinary evenings into little celebrations. "Pizza and a movie, that's a date too," she'd say, pulling out wine and lighting candles, even if we were watching old Interstellar for the third time. We rented a tiny apartment where you could reach the bed from the kitchen, but we didn't care. I'd wake up next to her and think how damn lucky I was. When I proposed to her, it wasn't spontaneous, but not perfectly planned either. We were at the coast, and I just said, "I can't imagine myself with anyone else. I don't want to imagine it." She looked at me, bit her lip, and cried. "God, did you at least buy a ring?" she asked through tears. I did, and she said yes. We weren't rich. I worked at an IT company, she took freelance orders. We saved for a house, argued about where to go on vacation, talked about the future. And the future seemed so predictably good that we started taking it for granted. Then came the day that divided everything into before and after. But for now, we were still happy. In the spring of 2017, Lily got a big project, redesigning an old building into an art space. She was over the moon, working nights, going to meetings, making plans. I remember how one day she said, nodding at the blueprints, "You know, Evan, I finally feel like I'm doing something real." I smiled. "You always do something real, you just don't see it sometimes." She came over and kissed me on the temple. "That's why I love you, because you believe in me more than I do myself." That was our last normal conversation. I remember the day of the accident with frightening clarity. I was at work when they called. The voice on the phone was trembling. "Are you Evan Clark? This is St. John's Hospital, your wife. She had an accident." The world became white noise. When I rushed to the hospital, the doctor met me with tired eyes. "She's alive," he said right away. "But spinal injury, we're doing everything we can." I remember standing in the hallway, listening to the hoarse sound of the machines. In the room she lay motionless, her face pale, hair in blood. I took her hand. "Lily, I'm here. Everything will be okay, hear me." She opened her eyes, tried to smile, but tears rolled down her cheeks instead. "Evan, I can't feel my legs." That phrase etched itself into my memory, as if someone carved it with a knife. The following weeks were like a black vortex. Surgeries, rehabilitation, doctors, bills. I slept in the chair next to her bed. Every time someone from the staff said, "We need to talk," I froze. The diagnosis sounded like a sentence: paraplegia. Paralysis of the lower body, forever. Lily held on at first. "It's okay," she'd say. "I'm strong, we'll manage." But when they transferred her home, a different life began. A life where there was no more us. There was care, schedules, pills, diapers, physical therapy, endless tears, anger, guilt. And somewhere in there, me. At first, I held on. I worked remotely to be nearby. I learned everything: how to lift properly, how to help in the shower, how to watch for bed sores. I told friends, "Yeah, it's tough, but I promise to be there." And I believed it. But then came nights when I'd lie next to her and feel that it wasn't Lily anymore, but a person living in another world. A world of pain, shame, irritation. She distanced herself. Sometimes she'd yell at me for doing something wrong. Sometimes she'd cry. Sometimes she'd just be silent for days. I knew it wasn't her fault. But with each month, I felt life draining out of me. And still I stayed. Because not abandoning seemed like the only thing that made me human. The first months after discharge were like survival. Not life, not recovery, just a day-to-day struggle. I sold our car because she couldn't use it anyway. I remodeled the apartment: handrails, ramp, special bed, wheelchair. I did everything right. And yet everything was crumbling. Lily became a different person. Sometimes I'd see the old her in her gaze, the one who joked, lit candles, and believed in miracles. But more often, there was something empty, heavy. "Evan," she said one day while I was helping her dress, "you shouldn't do all this." "What exactly?" "Everything, being here, enduring this, me." I tried to joke. "Sorry, I'm not giving up my position." But she didn't smile. "You don't understand. I hate that you see me like this, that I'm a burden." Those words hit hard. I opened my mouth but couldn't say anything. Friends gradually disappeared. At first politely, "Don't want to bother." Then they just stopped writing. My mom came every couple of weeks, brought food, tried to cheer us up. But every time she left, Lily got irritated. "Your mom looked at me like a broken toy again." "Lily, she's just worried." "No, she's just uncomfortable that I'm not the perfect daughter-in-law anymore." Sometimes I got tired of arguing and just stayed silent. Silence became our language. There were moments when I thought she was giving up. And there were when I was. At night, when I sat in silence after her pain attacks, I'd catch myself thinking, what if it had ended back then in the hospital? Would it be easier for her? Then I'd be horrified at myself for it. After a year, she started rehabilitation. I'd drive her to sessions, wait 2 hours in the car. Sometimes she'd come back angry because nothing was working. "Why do you drive me there if there's no point?" she yelled once, throwing a pillow. "Because you have to try." "To hell with your have to." She cried. I came over, hugged her. She pushed away at first, then went limp. "I just want everything to be like before," she whispered. Me too, but I didn't say it. 2 years passed. I barely slept, worked from home, cared for her, cooked, cleaned, monitored her meds. I stopped being a husband. I became a caregiver. Love slowly dissolved, like a photo in the sun. Sometimes I'd remember how she used to call me, "Sonny boy." Now I was a shadow. Lily started seeing a therapist. It was my suggestion. At first she resisted, then agreed. After a few months of therapy, she started changing a bit. She laughed again, sometimes put on makeup even if no one was coming. And that's when I first noticed Mark. Mark was a volunteer at the rehab center. Young, attentive, with that kind of soft confidence that tired men lose. He joked with her, helped during exercises, sometimes brought coffee. I saw how she blossomed around him. And I swear I wasn't angry. At first, no. Because for the first time in a long time, I saw her alive. But then she started staying at the center longer. Came back in high spirits, with a sparkle in her eyes. Mark suggested trying new exercises. He says I'm making progress. I nodded. That's great, Lily, really. But somewhere inside, something tightened. One day, I came to pick her up early. Entered the hall, and saw Mark holding her hands, laughing, and her looking at him with that expression I hadn't seen in years. Love or its ghost. He helped her into the wheelchair, and noticing me, smiled. Evan, you're right on time, we just finished. I smiled back. Lily quickly looked away. In the car, she was silent. Then she said, Don't start. Don't start what? You saw and now you're going to imagine things. I stayed silent. Evan, she whispered, I just want to feel alive. Those words sounded like a sentence. After that, everything became cold. She stopped looking me in the eyes. Talked formally, like to an older brother. I tried to bring back the warmth, but it slipped away like sand through fingers. A few months later, I found a message. Not on purpose, I was just looking for a document on her laptop. Opened the messenger, it was short. You're the only one who sees me as not a disabled person. I just want someone nearby who doesn't pity me. I know it's wrong, but I can't stop. I closed the laptop and just sat feeling no anger, no pain, only emptiness. That evening, I didn't say a word. Made dinner, served it. She was talking about something, a series, the weather. And I just watched. The woman for whom I gave 5 years of my life. Whom I loved, held, fed, changed, protected. And who now wanted to be alive with someone else. That night I didn't sleep. Stared at the ceiling and thought, what if I just leave? What would be worse, staying and dying slowly, or leaving and being a monster? I woke up early, earlier than usual. Lily was still sleeping, breathing quietly, and for a second everything looked almost normal. As if everything that happened was a nightmare. As if I woke up again in our old apartment, where morning smelled of coffee and cinnamon. But then I saw her phone on the nightstand. And remembered everything. Those messages. Her words. You're the only one who sees me as not a disabled person. That day, I went to the office for the first time in a long time. Not because I had to, because I couldn't stay home. While sitting at my desk, staring at the monitor, the same thought spun in my head. I'm not angry, I'm just empty. A colleague, Sarah, came over and asked, Everything okay? I mechanically replied, Yeah, just tired. Tired, the word that became the meaning of my life. In the evening, driving home, for the first time in years, I wasn't in a hurry. Caught myself driving slowly, almost hoping the road wouldn't end. When I entered the house, she was sitting in the living room. The TV was on, but she wasn't watching. Hi, she said quietly. Hi. Pause. Something trembled in the air. I understood if I don't say anything now, I'll stay for another month, a year, a lifetime. I took a deep breath. Lily, I found your messages. She froze. Her eyes widened. Silently turned off the TV. You read them? Yes. Silence. I expected excuses, tears, yelling. But she just lowered her head. I didn't want you to find out like that. Then how, in a year? No, I just didn't know how to tell you. I came closer. Do you love him? She was silent for a long time, then barely audible. I don't know, I just feel alive around him. That phrase pierced like a needle. I closed my eyes to not snap. And me, am I still part of your life? Of course you. No, don't say of course. You haven't been with me for a long time. She sobbed. Evan, I didn't want to hurt you. You did everything for me, but I'm tired of being someone's project. I want to be seen as a woman, not a patient. I nodded, understood, and in that moment realized I can't anymore. I took a suitcase, packed things, not everything, just the essentials. She watched silently. Where are you going? I don't know, just not here. Evan, please don't do this. Lily, I already did. But you promised in sickness and in health. Yes, and I kept that promise for 5 years. She cried. I stood in the doorway, feeling everything breaking inside. I'm not leaving because I don't love you. I'm leaving because I can't breathe anymore. I left at night. No music, no words. Just drove along the empty highway until I realized I couldn't feel my hands or legs. Stopped on the shoulder and for the first time in all this time, screamed. Loudly until it hurt into the darkness. Not from anger, but from helplessness. The following weeks passed in a fog. I rented a tiny apartment, worked 12 hours a day, drank coffee and slept 3 hours. Tried not to think. But thoughts came. What if she fell? What if she's in pain? What if she hates me? I wanted to text, call, find out. But I couldn't. Because I knew, if I heard her voice, I'd go back. One day, her sister called me. Evan, I don't know what you did, but Lily is completely empty. She says it's all over. I wanted to explain, but couldn't. Because how do you explain that leaving isn't betrayal, but salvation? Just not for everyone. A month passed. I went to visit her without warning. She opened the door, thinner, paler, but alive. Mark stood behind her. He looked at me with slight fear. Hi, I said. Evan, what are you doing here? I just wanted to make sure you're okay. She nodded. I thank you. I glanced at Mark. He took her hand. And in that moment I understood my place was taken. I went out to the street, got in the car, and for the first time in a long time felt pain, real, alive. I'm not evil, not offended, just tired of being a hero in someone else's tragedy. That evening, I wrote a post on Reddit. Title: AITA for leaving my disabled partner after 5 years of caregiving. And to my surprise, thousands of people responded. Some wrote, you did all you could. Others, you're a monster, love doesn't give up. But one comment stayed in my memory forever. Sometimes love isn't staying. Sometimes love is letting go of the person who no longer sees light in you. I don't know if I'm the villain or not. Maybe we're both victims. I go to sleep every night with the same question. What if I had stayed just a little longer? There's no answer. Only silence. And a faint smell of cinnamon that I still feel, as if from another world. It's been almost 3 months since the day I left. And only now have I started noticing how my life has changed. No more morning routines scheduled to the minute. No medication schedules, no doctor calls. Only silence. The kind that sometimes makes you want to turn on the TV just to not go crazy. I thought freedom would feel like lightness. But in reality, it smelled like emptiness. At work, I became normal again. Colleagues started inviting me to lunches. I even started joking. One day Sarah said, I'm glad you're alive again, Evan. I smiled. But inside, nothing. Because alive doesn't mean happy. Sometimes I'd catch myself in strange habits. Waking up at night and reaching to check if someone was breathing next to me. Cooking dinner for 2, though eating alone. Buying her favorite tea. Then realizing and throwing it away. One evening, I opened Reddit and reread my post. There were more comments, almost 5,000. Some wrote, "You saved yourself. She's an adult, not your responsibility." Others, "You abandoned someone when they were weaker. That's the worst thing you can do." I read and couldn't understand. Who am I? Victim, traitor, just a person. A week after that, I received a letter. A real one-paper. No return address. On the envelope, just my name in neat handwriting. I knew who it was from. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, 4 pages. "Evan, if you're reading this, thank you for not erasing me from your life after all. I thought long about whether to write to you. But you deserve to know. At first I was angry. I screamed that you abandoned me, that you're selfish. Then I realized you were the last one holding my life together. I just didn't notice how hard it was for you. Mark, he's different. He's kind, but he doesn't understand what it means to be there when pain is every morning. He doesn't know how to be silent when I fall. He doesn't know how to hold a hand when I'm scared. You knew. I'm not writing to get you back. I just want to say thank you. You were my support, even when I called you a shadow. You deserve happiness, Evan. Real happiness. Lily." I reread the letter dozens of times. Each time, a new lump in my throat. There were no apologies in it. No requests. Just simple truth. And in that truth, there was more love than in all our years together. A few days later, I went to the park where we used to go on weekends. Autumn was just beginning. Leaves fell to the ground slowly, as if the world was deliberately moving softer. I sat on a bench, took out the letter and brought it to my lips. "Goodbye, Lily." I said it not out loud, just inside. And for the first time in a long time, let go. Later I started writing again, not on Reddit but just for myself. About how love can be not only about together, but also about letting go. About how sometimes leaving isn't escape, but an act of honesty. To yourself, to the person you can't save anymore. 6 months later, I received another letter from her sister. Lily died. Complications, suddenly. I sat in the car, holding the envelope, and couldn't cry or breathe. The letter was short. She often said you were her home, even after you left. I drove to the sea, put her letter in a bottle, and threw it into the water. The waves carried it away, as if right there to peace. And in that moment I understood, I'm not a monster. I'm just a person who one day couldn't live someone else's pain anymore. AITA. Maybe. But if loving means destroying yourself, then maybe guilty isn't so bad. It's been 7 years. 7 years since I held that letter in my hands. 7 years after I let go of the woman who once called me her everything. Now I live in a small coastal town. I work as a literature teacher. Life is quiet, orderly. No one here knows who I was, only who I've become. On the shelf by the window stands a wooden box. In it, letters. Her handwriting neat with a slight slant. Sometimes I take one out and reread a couple of lines. Not from longing. From gratitude. People often say time heals. But the truth is, it just teaches us to live with what didn't heal. A year ago, I met Helen. She works with children, helps those who have been through trauma. When I first told her my story, she was silent for a long time, then said, "You didn't abandon her, Evan. You just stopped dying with her every day." Those words stayed with me. Sometimes students ask, "Professor, why do you so often say that compassion isn't always kindness?" And I answer, because sometimes compassion turns into a cage, into a debt no one asked you to pay. And if you don't break free, You'll burn not only your life, but the life of the one you're trying to save. Recently, I wrote a story about a person who carried someone else's pain on their shoulders for half a life, about how hard it is to distinguish love from the habit of suffering. I submitted it to a publisher. The editor said, "It's too sad. People want to believe in happy endings." I smiled, because this is a happy ending. Not perfect, but honest. Last evening I stood on the shore. The sea was calm, the sun was setting, and the sky turned golden crimson. I thought how strangely life is arranged. Sometimes, to truly understand what love means, you have to go through its destruction. I closed my eyes and imagined that Lily is somewhere out there. Not in the body that became her prison, but in that very park under the autumn leaves, where she once laughed so sincerely that the world seemed to freeze. I smiled, because for the first time in many years, I didn't feel guilt. Only peace. AITA. Probably still yes for someone. But for myself, I'm just a person who learned to choose life.